The rescue ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Broken metal floated everywhere like leaves in wind. This was all that remained of the passenger ship that had sent a distress signal 15 hours ago. Lieutenant Park sat at her scanner station, her eyes tired but focused. She had seen many crash sites in her 5 years of rescue work, but something about this one felt heavy in her chest. The ship had been carrying 300 passengers, families, children. Now it was just floating pieces of metal and ice. "Anything on the scanners?" Captain Lee's voice came through her earpiece. He was on the bridge, watching from the main screen. "Nothing yet, sir," replied. She adjusted the scanner settings, searching for any sign of life. The temperature inside the broken ship had dropped far below freezing. No one could survive that for 15 hours. She knew this. Everyone knew this. But they still had to look. They were one of the oldest species in the Galactic Coalition. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. They were tall beings with silver skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were large and made of many small parts, like an insect's eyes, but beautiful in their own way. They could see colors that humans could not even imagine. They did not think much of humans. To them, humans were young and foolish, too emotional, too loud, too messy. Humans had only joined the coalition 50 years ago, and many older species still treated them like children who had wandered into an adult meeting. Did not care what the thought of humans. Right now, she only cared about finding survivors. Her scanner made a small sound, a beep, then another. Sat up straight. "Captain, I have something." "What is it?" "Life sign, very weak, deck 7 in the cargo area." Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. "It is faint, sir, very faint, but it is there." Captain Lee was silent for a moment. "Are you certain? The internal temperature is -80 degrees. "I am certain. Something is alive in there." The rescue team prepared quickly, was the first to volunteer. She put on her thermal suit and grabbed her equipment. 4 other team members joined her. They took a small transport pod to the broken ship and found a place to cut through the hull. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Turned on her helmet light and saw things she wished she had not seen. Bodies were everywhere. Their silver blood had frozen into crystals that sparkled in her light like dark stars. Men, women, children, all frozen in their last moments. Forced herself to keep moving. The life sign was still showing on her scanner. Deck 7, cargo hold. She followed the signal through broken hallways and collapsed doors. "The signal is getting stronger," she said to her team. "We are close." They reached the cargo hold. The door was jammed, so they cut through it with a laser tool. Inside, the hold was filled with storage containers and personal belongings that had been thrown everywhere when the ship broke apart. And there in the corner found her. A woman lay curled on the floor. Her silver skin had turned dark gray from the cold. She was clearly dead and had been dead for many hours, but her body was not lying flat. She was curled around something, protecting it with all 4 of her arms. Her thermal cloak, the last warmth she had, was wrapped around the thing she held. Knelt down slowly. Her heart was beating fast. "Lieutenant," one of her team members asked, "what did you find?" Gently moved the dead woman's arms. Under the cloak, pressed against the mother's frozen chest, was a baby. An infant so small, smaller than a human newborn. Its silver skin was pale but not gray. Its tiny chest was moving up and down, breathing, alive. "I found a survivor," whispered. Her voice was shaking. "It is a baby." She reached down and carefully lifted the infant from its mother's arms. The moment she did, the baby's large eyes opened. They were compound eyes like all, but they were clear and bright and very much alive. And then the baby began to scream. It was a terrible sound, high and sharp and full of fear. The baby's 4 tiny arms reached out, searching for something that was no longer there, searching for its mother. Said softly, holding the baby against her chest, "It is okay, "You are safe now, you are safe." But the baby did not stop screaming. It screamed all the way back to the transport pod. It screamed during the trip to the rescue ship. It screamed as if its small heart was breaking into 1,000 pieces. Held the baby the entire time. She did not know what else to do. She did not know if she was holding it correctly. She did not know if her human warmth would help or hurt an infant. But she could not put it down. She could not let go of this tiny creature that had just lost everything. On the rescue ship, the medical team took the baby and placed it in a special containment unit. The screaming continued. Stood outside the medical bay, watching through the window, her hands still feeling empty. Captain Lee walked up beside her. "You did good work today, Lieutenant." She was protecting her baby, said quietly. The mother. Even when she was dying, even when she knew she could not survive, she used her own body to keep her baby warm. She gave up her thermal cloak. She wrapped herself around her child. She did everything she could. Captain Lee nodded slowly. Mothers are the same everywhere, it seems, human or. What will happen to the baby now? We are taking her to Coalition Station Harmony. The representatives will decide what to do with her. Watched the tiny silver baby thrashing in the containment unit, still screaming, still reaching for a mother who would never come. She is so small, said. She does not understand what happened. She only knows that she is alone. Captain Lee put a hand on her shoulder. You saved her life, Lieutenant. That is something. But as watched the baby scream, she was not sure if saving her life was enough. The infant was alive, yes, but she was also alone in a way that no one should ever be alone. She had come into the universe knowing her mother's warmth, her mother's heartbeat, her mother's protection, and now all of that was gone. The rescue ship turned toward Coalition Station Harmony. The baby screamed for 3 hours straight before finally going quiet from exhaustion. But even in her sleep, her tiny 4 arms kept reaching out, grabbing at empty air, searching for something she would never find again. Did not sleep that night. She sat outside the medical bay, watching over the baby, feeling a strange pain in her chest that she could not explain. She had seen death before. She had seen tragedy before. But something about this tiny orphan, this small silver creature who had lost everything before she even had a chance to live, broke something inside that she did not know could be broken. "I will not let you be alone," she whispered to the sleeping baby through the window. "I do not know how, but I will not let you be alone." The stars moved past the window. The ship flew on through the darkness. And somewhere in the cold of space, a mother's body drifted with the wreckage, her arms still curved in the shape of protection, still holding the ghost of the child she had saved. Coalition Station Harmony was one of the largest stations in the galaxy. It floated in neutral space, far from any planet, and served as a meeting place for all the species of the Galactic Coalition. Thousands of beings lived and worked there. Humans, and dozens of other species walked through its wide hallways every day. The rescue ship arrived at the station 2 days after finding the baby. During those 2 days, the infant had barely stopped crying. She refused to eat. She could not sleep for more than a few minutes at a time. The medical team did everything they could, but nothing worked. Had stayed near the medical bay the entire journey. She was not supposed to. Her duty shift had ended, but she could not make herself walk away from that screaming baby. When they docked at the station, officials were already waiting. Ambassador was the highest ranking on the station. He was old, even by standards. His silver skin had turned almost white with age. His 4 arms were thin and his compound eyes were cloudy. But he still held great power in the coalition government. Watched silently as the medical team transferred the baby to the station's medical center. The infant was placed in a new containment unit, bigger and more advanced than the one on the ship. She looked even smaller inside it, like a tiny silver dot in a sea of white and metal. "What is the infant's status?" asked one of the doctors. "Stable but declining," the doctor replied. "She is in the early stages of Mora." was standing nearby with Captain Lee. She did not know what Mora meant, but the way the doctor said it made her stomach feel cold. "What is Mora?" she asked. Ambassador turned to look at her. His cloudy eyes studied her face as if she was a strange insect he had never seen before. "You are the human who found the child." "Yes, sir." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. Mora is what happens when an infant loses its mother before the bonding is complete. It is a kind of sickness, a sickness of the bond. "I do not understand," said. "Infants are different from human infants," explained slowly, as if talking to someone very stupid. "When a baby is born, it bonds with its mother through chemicals, special chemicals that the mother's body makes. The baby learns its mother's smell, its mother's touch, its mother's voice. This bond is everything to the infant. It is how the baby's brain learns to work. Without this bond, the brain cannot develop correctly." "But she is alive," said. "She is healthy." "She is alive now," corrected. "But she will not stay alive. Without her mother's bond, her brain is confused, lost. She does not know how to eat because eating was connected to her mother. She cannot sleep because sleeping was connected to her mother. Every basic function of her body was connected to that bond. And now the bond is broken." "Felt sick? There must be something you can do, some medicine, some treatment." "We have studied Mara for thousands of years," said. "There is no cure. We have tried synthetic chemicals. We have tried hormone treatments. We have tried recordings of mothers' voices. Nothing works. The bond must be real. It must be with the actual mother. And the mother is dead." "So you are just going to let her die?" His expression did not change. "We are going to make her comfortable. That is all we can do. Within a few days she will stop eating entirely. Her body will begin to shut down. It will not be painful. She will simply fade away." "No," the word came out of his mouth before she could stop it. "No, that is not acceptable." Captain Lee put a hand on her arm. "Lieutenant, this is not our decision to make." "She is a baby," said, her voice rising. "She is a living baby. You cannot just give up on her." Ambassador looked at for a long moment. His ancient eyes showed no anger. If anything, they showed something like pity. "Humans are a young species," he said quietly. "You have not yet learned that some things cannot be fixed. Some problems cannot be solved. This is sad, yes, but it is nature. The child's bond was broken, and so the child will die. It is biology. It is the way things are." He turned and walked away. The doctors continued their work, moving around the containment unit like ghosts, checking readings, making notes, preparing for a death they believed was certain. Stood frozen in place, staring at the baby through the glass. The infant had stopped screaming. She was too tired to scream anymore. Her tiny body lay still in the containment unit, her 4 arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold something that was not there. "Lieutenant," Captain Lee spoke gently, "we should go. There is nothing more we can do here." But did not move. She was watching the baby's face. The infant's compound eyes were open, staring at nothing. But as watched, the eyes slowly moved and found her through the glass. For one moment the baby looked directly at, and in that look saw something that broke her heart. She saw loneliness. She saw fear. She saw a tiny creature begging for help that no one believed could come. "She is looking for someone," whispered. "She is looking for her mother," Captain Lee said, "but her mother is gone." "No," shook her head slowly. "She is looking for anyone. She is looking for someone to help her. She does not care who. She just wants someone to hold her and tell her she is not alone." The doctors said the bond has to be with the real mother. Human comfort would not work. Finally turned away from the window. Her face was set in a hard expression that Captain Lee had never seen before. "They have been studying this for thousands of years," she said, "but they have never had a human try." "Lieutenant, what are you thinking?" Did not answer. She walked away from the medical center, her mind spinning with thoughts she could not yet put into words. Behind her, the baby's eyes followed her until she disappeared around the corner. That night could not sleep. She lay in her small room on the station and stared at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the baby's face. She heard the baby's screams. She felt the weight of that tiny body in her arms when she had first lifted her from her dead mother's embrace. They said the bond had to be chemical. They said it had to be biological. They said a human could not help because humans did not have the right chemicals, the right hormones, the right biology. But remembered holding the baby on the rescue ship. She remembered how the infant's screams had changed when pressed her against her chest. Not stopped, not calmed, but changed. For just a moment the screaming had become less desperate, less terrified, as if something in that touch had reached the baby in a way that the containment unit could not. What if they were wrong? What if the bond was not only about chemicals? What if it was about something more? Sat up in bed. Her heart was beating fast. She knew what she was thinking was crazy. She knew she could get in serious trouble. They had made it clear that the baby was their responsibility now. A human had no right to interfere. But she could not stop thinking about those eyes. Those tiny compound eyes, looking at her through the glass, begging for someone to help. "I am sorry, Captain," said to the empty room, "but I cannot just let her die." She got out of bed and got dressed. It was the middle of the night on the station. The hallways would be empty. The medical center would have only a small staff on duty. If she was quick, if she was careful, she might be able to get inside. Walked to the door of her room and stopped. Her hand was shaking as she reached for the control panel. This was wrong. This was against orders. This could end her career. She thought of the baby, lying alone in that cold containment unit, slowly dying while everyone around her just watched and waited. Opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The hallways of Coalition Station Harmony were quiet at night. The lights had dimmed to a soft blue glow, and most of the station's residents were asleep. Walked quickly but carefully, keeping her footsteps light on the metal floor. The medical center was on the other side of the station. It took her 20 minutes to get there. Along the way, she passed a few night workers, but none of them paid attention to her. She was just another person walking through the station, nothing unusual. When she reached the medical center, stopped outside the main door. Through the small window, she could see the night staff at their stations. There were 3 doctors on duty. One was sitting at a console, reading something on a screen. The other 2 were talking quietly near the back of the room. The baby's containment unit was in a separate room, just beyond the main area. Could see the door from where she stood. She just had to get past the doctors without being stopped. She took a deep breath and walked in. The doctor at the console looked up as she entered. "Can I help you?" "I need to check something," said, trying to sound confident. "I was on the rescue team that found the infant. I want to look at her file." The doctor studied her for a moment. "The infant is under medical care now. Human personnel do not have clearance to access her records." "I understand. I just want to see her just for a moment. I was the one who found her." The doctor's compound eyes showed no emotion. "That is not possible. Ambassador has given orders. No one is to disturb the infant except authorized medical staff." Felt her plan falling apart. She should have known it would not be this easy. They were careful about rules. They followed them exactly. "Please," she said. "I know it is against the rules, but she is dying. I just want to see her one more time before." She let her voice trail off. Something shifted in the doctor's expression. It was small, barely noticeable, but saw it. Maybe even they felt something about a dying baby. Maybe even they understood what it meant to care. "5 minutes," the doctor said quietly. "No more, and you cannot touch anything." "Thank you," breathed. "Thank you so much." She walked past the doctor and opened the door to the infant's room. Inside, the lights were dim. The containment unit sat in the center of the room, surrounded by machines that monitored the baby's vital signs. The readings on the screens were all wrong. Even could see that. The numbers were too low. The patterns were too irregular. The baby lay in the containment unit, her eyes closed, her four tiny arms pressed against her chest. She was not screaming anymore. She was not even crying. She was just lying there, slowly giving up. Walked to the edge of the containment unit and looked down at her. The baby's silver skin had grown even paler. Her breathing was shallow. She looked like a flower that had been cut from its roots, slowly dying without water. "I am here," whispered. "I came back." The baby's eyes opened at the sound of her voice. Those large compound eyes focused on space, and again saw that look. That desperate, lonely look that said, "Please help me." Knew she was supposed to just look. She was supposed to stand here for 5 minutes and then leave. She was supposed to follow the rules. But looking at that tiny face, she knew she could not do that. She reached over and turned off the containment field. The doctor's voice came from the doorway immediately. "What are you doing?" Did not answer. She reached into the unit and picked up the baby. The infant was so light, she weighed almost nothing. Her silver skin was cool against hands. "Stop!" The doctor rushed into the room. "You cannot do that. Put the infant down." Held the baby against her chest, wrapping her arms around the tiny body. "No. This is against all protocols. The infant needs to be in a sterile environment. You could contaminate her." "She does not need a sterile environment," said. Her voice was calm even though her heart was pounding. "She needs to be held." The other two doctors had come to the doorway now. They were talking rapidly in the language, their four arms waving in agitation. One of them reached for a communication device, probably to call security, but did not care about any of that. She was looking at the baby in her arms. The infant had started crying again the moment picked her up. A weak, tired cry, nothing like the powerful screams from before. But as held her close, pressing the baby against the warmth of her chest, something began to change. Started to rock slowly, back and forth, the way her mother had rocked her when she was small. She began to hum softly, an old song, a song her grandmother used to sing about the moon and a rabbit who lived there. She whispered between the notes of the song, "I know you are scared, I know you are sad, but you are not alone. I am here, I am right here." The baby's crying continued, but it was changing, growing softer, less desperate. Her tiny forearms, which had been pushing weakly against his chest, began to slow their movement. "Your mother loved you so much," said softly. "She loved you enough to give everything for you, everything she had, her warmth, her life. She gave it all so you could live, and I am not going to let that be for nothing. Do you understand? I am not going to let you give up." One of the baby's arms stopped pushing. It curled inward instead, grabbing its uniform. "That is right," said, tears forming in her eyes. Hold on to me." Another arm curled inward, then another, then the fourth. All four of the baby's tiny arms were wrapped around now, holding on with whatever strength the infant had left. The crying stopped. The room went silent except for the soft sound of humming and the gentle rhythm of her rocking. The three doctors stood frozen in the doorway, unable to believe what they were seeing. The baby's compound eyes were still open, still looking up its face, but the fear was fading. The desperation was fading. Something else was taking its place, something that looked almost like peace. "That is right," whispered. "You are safe now. I have got you. I am not going anywhere." The baby's eyes slowly closed. Her grip on its uniform relaxed but did not let go. Her breathing changed, becoming deeper, steadier. She was sleeping. For the first time since her mother died, the infant was truly sleeping, not passing out from exhaustion, not falling into unconsciousness, actually sleeping peacefully in the arms of a human who had no biological bond, no chemical connection, no reason at all to care. Except that she did care. She cared with her whole heart. One of the doctors stepped forward slowly, looking at the monitors that were still connected to the baby. His compound eyes went wide. "This is impossible," he said. What? The other doctor asked. Her readings, look at her readings. They are stabilizing, all of them. Her brain activity, her heart rate, everything. It is like. He stopped, unable to find the words. It is like what? The doctor looked at, who was still rocking gently, still humming, still holding the sleeping baby against her chest. It is like she bonded, he said. But that is impossible. Humans cannot bond with infants. The biology is completely different. There is no chemical connection. It should not work. But it was working. Everyone in the room could see it. The baby was calm. The baby was sleeping. The baby was alive in a way she had not been alive since her mother died. Looked up at the doctors. Tears were running down her cheeks, but she was smiling. Maybe it does not have to be chemical, she said. Maybe it just has to be real. By morning, everyone on the station knew what had happened. Had held the baby for 8 hours straight. When the doctors tried to take the infant from her, the baby woke up and started crying immediately. When held her again, she calmed down. It was clear that whatever was happening, it only worked when was holding her. So the doctors let stay. They brought her a chair. They brought her water and food. And they watched in silence as a human woman held a baby and did something that 3,000 years of science said was impossible. Ambassador arrived at the medical center just after sunrise. He walked into the infant's room and stopped when he saw sitting in the chair with the baby sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Explain this," he said to the doctors. His voice was flat, but his 4 arms were held tight against his body. That was a sign of strong emotion in. "We cannot explain it, Ambassador," one of the doctors said. "All our readings show that the infant has stabilized. Her brain activity is normal. Her vital signs are strong. She even took food this morning when the human fed her." "That is not possible. There is no chemical bond. I examined the scans myself. The human's biology is completely incompatible with our species." "We know, sir, and yet the results are clear. The infant is recovering." Walked closer too. He stood over her, looking down at the sleeping baby in her arms. His cloudy eyes studied the infant's face, the relaxed position of her 4 arms, the gentle movement of her breathing. "What did you do?" he asked. "I held her," said simply. "I sang to her. I told her she was not alone." "That cannot be enough. Mora is a biological condition. It cannot be cured by holding and singing." "Maybe you do not understand the condition as well as you think you do." His eyes narrowed. For a moment thought he might be angry, but then something changed in his expression. It was not softness exactly. They did not show emotions the way humans did, but it was something close to curiosity. "Our scientists will need to study this," he said finally. "If what you have done can be replicated, it would change everything we know about Mora." "I do not care about your studies," said. "I care about this baby, and I am not letting her go." Before could respond, another person entered the room. Dr. Han was the station's, a human scientist who specialized in studying different species. She was a small woman with short hair and bright eyes that were always looking for answers. "Ambassador," said, bowing her head slightly, "I have been analyzing the data from last night. May I share my findings?" Gestured with one of his arms, "Speak." Pulled up a holographic display showing 2 brain scans side by side. "This is the infant's brain activity before Lieutenant Park held her. You can see the patterns are chaotic and fragmented. This is what Mora looks like. The brain is searching for the bonding signal from the mother and cannot find it." She touched the display and the second scan expanded. "This is the infant's brain activity after Lieutenant Park held her for 2 hours. The patterns have completely changed. They are organized, stable, almost identical to a healthy infant with a normal mother bond." Studied the scans. "How is this possible without the chemical bond?" "Because the bond may not be purely chemical," said. "We have always assumed that mother-infant bonding works through pheromones and hormones, and that is part of it. but I think we missed something important. She pulled up another display showing diagrams of both human and neural systems. When Lieutenant Park held the infant, her human body did something that no could do. Her brain released chemicals like oxytocin and serotonin. These are human bonding chemicals that the infant could not detect through smell or taste. Biology simply does not recognize them. Then how did they help? They did not help directly, but they changed Lieutenant Park's behavior. When humans release these bonding chemicals, we do certain things automatically. We hold, we rock, we make gentle sounds, our heartbeat changes, our breathing changes, our body temperature rises slightly. These are physical changes, not chemical ones. Looked at, who was listening quietly while continuing to hold the sleeping baby. The infant could not smell the chemicals, continued, but she could feel the results. She could feel the warmth. She could feel the heartbeat. She could feel the rhythm of the rocking. She could hear the sound of the humming. And somehow these physical signals did something that chemical signals could not do. What? They convinced the infant's brain that she was safe, that she was held, that she was loved. Paused. Ambassador, I do not think Mora is just about losing a chemical bond. I think it is about losing the feeling of being wanted, the feeling of being protected. And while a mother provides this feeling through chemicals, Lieutenant Park provided it through something else entirely. Was silent for a long time. His forearms had relaxed from their tight position against his body. He was thinking, processing, trying to fit this new information into 3,000 years of understanding. You are saying, he said slowly, that human emotion saved this child. I am saying that humans have something special, replied. Something that maybe no other species in the coalition has. We can bond with anything, anyone. We do not need the right chemicals or the right biology. We just need to care. That is not logical. No, agreed. It is not logical at all, but it is real. Look at the data, Ambassador. Look at the baby. The evidence is right in front of you. Looked at again. She met his eyes without looking away. The baby in her arms stirred slightly, her 4 tiny arms tightening their grip on his uniform. Humans are strange creatures, said quietly. When your species first joined the coalition, many of us did not want you. We thought you were too young, too primitive, too driven by emotions that had no place in a logical universe. And now asked, made a sound that might have been a sigh, or might have been something else entirely. Now I am not sure what to think. You have done something that our best scientists could not do. You saved a child that our medicine could not save. And you did it with nothing but your arms and your voice and your heart. He turned to leave, then stopped at the doorway. Perhaps, he said without turning around, there are some things that cannot be understood through science alone. Perhaps there are some things that can only be understood by holding a crying baby in the middle of the night and refusing to let go. He walked out. The room was silent except for the soft sound of the baby's breathing. Came over and knelt beside's chair. How are you feeling? You have been holding her for almost 10 hours now. Smiled tiredly. My arms are sore. My back hurts. I am more tired than I have ever been in my life. She looked down at the sleeping baby. And I have never felt more sure that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. What will you do when this is over? She cannot stay in your arms forever. Was quiet for a moment. She had been thinking about this question all night. She had been afraid to answer it, even to herself. I do not want this to be over, she finally said. I do not want to give her to some government facility where she will be raised by machines. She needs more than that. She deserves more than that. What are you saying? Looked up at with tears in her eyes. I think I am saying that I want to keep her. I want to raise her. I want to be her mother. Stared at her. You are talking about a cross-species adoption. That has never been done before. The government would never allow it. Maybe they will not have a choice, said. Maybe for the first time in history, they will have to admit that sometimes the illogical choice is the right one. The baby opened her eyes and looked up at. Her compound eyes sparkled in the morning light. One of her tiny arms reached up and touched face, caught the tiny hand in her own, and held it gently. "I am not going to leave you," she whispered to the baby. "No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, I found you, I saved you, and now you are mine." The months that followed were the hardest of life. She had to fight for everything. Every meeting, every document, every rule had to be challenged. The government said that a human could not adopt a child. It had never been done. There were no laws for it. There were no procedures. So made them create new laws, new procedures. She stood before the Coalition Council, a room full of representatives from dozens of species, and she argued her case. She showed them the medical data. She showed them videos of the baby screaming in the containment unit and sleeping peacefully in her arms. She brought Dr. Han to explain the science. She brought Captain Lee to speak about her character. And she brought the baby herself. The infant sat in lap during the entire hearing. She was bigger now, healthier now. Her silver skin had regained its shine. Her compound eyes were bright and curious. She looked around the council chamber at all the strange beings, and she was not afraid because she was in her mother's arms. That was how thought of herself now, not as a rescuer, not as a caretaker, as a mother. "This is highly unusual," the council chair said. He was from a species did not recognize, with green skin and 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face. In the history of the Coalition, there has never been a cross-species adoption of this kind. "That does not mean it cannot happen," replied. "It only means it has not happened yet." They have raised objections. They believe the child should be raised according to customs and traditions. Looked across the chamber at Ambassador. He was sitting with the other representatives, his face unreadable as always. With respect said, "Though we're ready to let this child die, they said it was biology, they said it was nature, they said nothing could be done. I do not blame them for that. They were working with the knowledge they had, but they were wrong." She held up the baby slightly so the council could see her. "This child is alive because I refused to accept that nothing could be done. She is healthy because I held her when everyone else had given up. She is here, in front of you right now, because a human did something that science said was impossible." The chamber was silent. "I am not saying that humans are better than," continued. "I am not saying that human ways are superior. I am simply saying that this child has already chosen. She has already bonded with me, not through chemicals, not through biology, through something deeper, through love." She looked at Ambassador. "You once said that humans are driven by emotions that have no place in a logical universe. Maybe that is true, but this child is alive because of those emotions. She is here because a human heart refused to let her go. If that is illogical, then I am proud to be illogical." Stood slowly. The entire chamber watched him. Whatever he said would likely decide the outcome of this hearing. "When I was young," he said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber, "I believed that the universe operated on rules. Fixed rules, unchangeable rules. Biology determined behavior. Chemistry determined bonds. Everything could be explained, predicted, controlled." He paused, looking at and the baby in her arms. "This human has shown me that I was wrong, not about everything, but about something important. The universe is bigger than our understanding of it, more complex than our science can explain, and sometimes the things that should be impossible happen anyway." He turned to address the council chair directly. "The government withdraws its objection. If the council approves the adoption, we will not oppose it. More than that, we will provide full support. The child may be raised as a human, but she is still. We will give Lieutenant Park all the information she needs to care for the child's physical and cultural needs." A murmur went through the chamber. This was not what anyone had expected. The council chair looked at for a long moment, then turned to the other representatives. The council will vote. The vote took less than 10 minutes. Sat rigid in her seat, holding the baby tight, trying not to shake. This was everything. Her entire future, her daughter's entire future, depending on this moment. The vote is complete, the council chair announced. By a majority of 32 to 7, with 4 abstentions, the council approves the adoption of the infant by Lieutenant Park of the Human Alliance. Could not breathe, could not think, could not do anything except hold her daughter and try not to cry. Furthermore, the chair continued, the council recommends that this case serve as a precedent for future cross-species adoptions, where the of the child is best served by such an arrangement. New laws and procedures will be drafted based on the unique circumstances of this case. It was over, she had won. Looked down at the baby in her arms. The infant was looking up at her with those beautiful compound eyes, as if she knew that something important had just happened. "You are mine now," whispered, "officially forever." The baby made a sound, a soft musical sound that vibrated in her tiny throat. It was a sound, one that human mouths could not make, but to ears it sounded almost like a word. She said, testing the sound, "Is that what you said?" The baby made the sound again, and this time there was no doubt. She was trying to name herself, the way children traditionally did. Smiled through her tears. "That is a Korean name too, you know. It means one, the first." She pressed her forehead against her daughter's forehead, feeling the cool silver skin against her own warm skin. The first child to be adopted by a human. The first cross-species family in coalition history. That is who you are the first, but I promise you, you will not be the last. 5 years passed. Grew tall, as children did. By the time she was 5, she was almost as tall as. Her silver skin was healthy and bright. Her 4 arms had grown strong from climbing everything she could find. Her compound eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. She spoke both human languages and she had friends from a dozen different species. She went to a school on the station where children of all kinds learned together. She was happy, confident, and loved. One evening, as was preparing dinner, came into the kitchen with a question. "Mother," she said, using the Korean word for mother that had taught her, "why are humans different from other species?" Stopped what she was doing and turned to look at her daughter. Was sitting at the table, her 4 arms folded in front of her, her head tilted in the way that meant she was thinking about something important. "What do you mean, little one?" "In school today we learned about the different ways that species bond with their families. Bond through chemicals. Some species bond through sound. Some bond through touch. But humans can bond with anyone, any species, any person. Why?" Sat down at the table across from her daughter. This was a conversation she had always known would come. She had thought about it many times, preparing what she would say. "I do not know if humans are different," she said finally. "I think maybe we are just stubborn." Stubborn. When something is supposed to be impossible, we do not always listen. When someone is supposed to be beyond saving, we try anyway. When a baby is alone in the dark, crying for help, we hold her. Even if we do not know how to help, even if everyone says it will not work. Why? Reached across the table and took one of his hands in her own. Because that is what humans do. We care about things that are not ours. We love children that did not come from our bodies. We build families out of choice, not just biology. It does not make sense. It is not logical, but it is who we are. Was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then she asked another question, the question that had been both dreading and hopping for. "Do you ever wish I was a human baby? A baby that came from your body instead of someone else's?" Felt tears forming in her eyes. She got up from her chair and walked around the table to where her daughter sat. She knelt down so they were at the same level and wrapped her arms around, who wrapped all 4 of her arms around in return. Never, said firmly. Not for 1 second, not for one heartbeat. You are my daughter not because of biology, not because of chemistry, because I found you and I held you and I loved you and I will never ever stop. Held her mother, I love you too, mother. They stayed like that for a long time, human and mother and daughter, two beings from different worlds who had found each other in the darkness of space and built a family out of nothing but love. Outside the window, the stars shone bright and endless. Somewhere out there, more Bobbies were crying. More children needed homes. More families were waiting to be made. And because of one human woman who refused to give up, the universe knew that such families were possible. That was the first gift gave to the galaxy. Her daughter was the second. And together, they proved that the most illogical thing in the universe, the thing that made no sense and followed no rules and could not be explained by science, was also the most powerful thing of all. Love. That was what humans do.